Hey guys, you caught me lost in thought there for a second. Um, it is Wednesday evening, March 13th. Sorry. Um, just about almost 5:30. So we're going to do a reading from my blog. This one's a little more recent. I've been reading the last couple were like a little more than a year ago. Today is a little more current. I wrote it back in January. And we're going to shift track from some of the nature reading, which I really, really enjoy. I love writing about nature. I wrote about bluebirds this morning. We really thought about reading that today. Um, but it's been a while since um, I've read anything about yoga. I write about it throughout the week. Generally, my writing it's all inspired. Whatever thought hits me in the morning, and I tend to stick with that. I sit quietly, I sit still, I wait. A phrase, a word uh, comes to me, and I sort of weave my words around that initial start. Or I have several notebooks here pages filled with just little things I've jotted down through the day, sometimes after walk, sometimes after meditation. And I'll just open it up and look. I may have written something down years ago, and my eye comes across it now, and I go and I write with that. Um, there's always something to write about. Don't believe the myth of writer's block. Doesn't mean that what you write you might think is the best thing you've ever done. Doesn't mean that that it flowed the way that you would like, but you got words down. That's the important thing for a writer. It's the important thing for anyone, any artist, to do the thing that you set out to do the thing that you love to do. Uh, don't give in to hesitation just because it seems like it's hard to start. If you're an artist, one line down an empty canvas can speak volumes. Commit to that line. See what happens. Maybe it's just going to be that line. Maybe I'm just going to have 6 words on a page and call it a day. But you know what? I'm going to commit to those 6 words. It's going to have meaning and value to me, and that's what counts. So maybe I won't share it, although I might. Maybe I won't even be happy with it. But it means that I fulfilled my commitment to my art, and I do that every single day. And everything is art. Everything. How I live my life is art. I made that commitment a long time ago, and it has been easy, it's been distressing, it's been difficult, it's been joyful, and everything in between all of those things. But it's been the life that I wanted. Man, make life your art. Make art your life. And everything has value and meaning. And you're happy to share it. So, with that, I'm going to write about yoga. Or I'm going to read about yoga. And yoga, too, is part of my art of life of art. This is based on the ego's point of view. As a matter of fact, it is titled The Ego's Point of View. So let's read it, and let's try to read it nice and slow. I find that I have a sense of hurriedness, rushing, as I read a lot of my stuff. And then I'll read it a second time, and I'm slower, and I feel like I've put much more into it that second time. Let's see if we can make the second time the first time. So, ego's point of view. Some of the most important yoga asanas to me right now are the ones once glossed over, considered filler poses to hold a place between the more dramatic postures that fit my image of yoga. I'm almost embarrassed to remember how ego-based my practice was. driven by performance, even as I practiced alone and the only praise was occurring in my mind. Worse, the entire time I was convinced that my ego was being tamed, diminished to the point of being free from its grasp. It seems that ego has a way of sneaking in the back door and making itself at home again, almost every time. What's different now is mostly age, being older and less inclined to chase ego away or to make it feel at home. Mainly, it's just a small voice within a larger sense of presence, a voice that urges me to consider a point of view that no longer feels like my own. I am more apt to smile at my own follies these days, no longer driven by need or nor accomplishments, and that includes any wish to eliminate the ego's point of view. It's easier just to smile, relax, and live my life through joy. My yoga practice reflects this. Or perhaps now I finally reflect my true practice. It doesn't matter either way. Right now, my yoga practice is healing-based, gentle, designed to calm some long-held pain, both physical and emotional. The voice of ego is often strong, urging me to drive harder and hold every pose longer. An athlete's voice, body-based, with everything judged by the previous standards once performed. But my easier approach is calming, quieting this voice to a whisper that soon drops to silence. No fight necessary, no need to push away its presence. I'm just less concerned with ego's point of view, and gently, continue with my practice, smiling all the while. And that is the ego's point of view, seen through 40 years of practice or so, seen through injury and frustration and drive and a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment, anything that can occur within the mind has occurred within my practice of yoga and my practice of writing. Everything that I hold value to has taken that same circumvent, that it begins with that drive to make something, to get something, to be something, something better, something stronger, more important, something more valuable. And then I realize what's going on, and I fight it, and I fight it, and I fight it, and that just causes more tension. It doesn't subdue the ego. It doesn't subdue that voice that is always telling us to have more or to get more. It just makes it stronger, because the ego thrives on internal violence, on being hard on ourselves. And it just grows louder, and it forces us on, and then we feel like a failure. The spiritual practice that we're doing that is supposed to tame the ego has only made it louder. So what we do is we surrender. And I'll read this again, but we'll go through it maybe line by line or so. My friend Odam's homestead is here. Hey, just a yogi doing burpees in his basement. I don't know why I laugh. I purposely picked that title, and I always laugh when I read it. And our friend C. Payton is here. C. Payton, how are you? How are you, Odam? I hope you finally had a few sunny days. Odam says that he's good, and how are you? I'm doing pretty well, too. I've been making some good trips out to the turtle pond to see if I can get some film. Turtles are not out yet. The water's still cool. They're down at the bottom waiting for, it got up to 70 today. So I thought they'd be out, but I think we need a few days of 70. C. Payton says that they are good as well. Thank you. I'm glad. So, again, the ego's point of view. And as I begin it with some of the most important yoga asanas, the poses, to me right now are the ones once glossed over, considered filler poses to hold a place between the more dramatic postures that fit my image of yoga. I'm almost embarrassed to remember how ego-based my practice was, driven by performance, even as I practiced alone, and the only praise was occurring in my mind. Worse, the entire time I was convinced that my ego was being tamed, diminished to the point of being free from its grip. It seems that ego has a way of sneaking in the back door and making itself at home again, almost every time. So, my image of a yogi sitting in the lotus position, being able to bend my leg behind my neck, being able to do a handstand for hours on time, all of that's just an image. You don't need to do any of that to practice yoga. And those gentle poses that have become a staple of my practice now, I once scorned. I'm an advanced yogi. I don't waste my time doing this kind of stuff. It was all ego. It was all ego based. And again, I'm embarrassed to think how driven I was, even though I did yoga on my own. No one there to watch. And yet I was still driven to get each of those poses, the harder, the more dramatic poses, in place. And it took me forever to finally realize that I was performing my yoga for a sense of ego, that I was writing for a sense of ego. I wasn't writing for joy or for pleasure. Everything had to be big. This is going to floor people. I even find that little voice when I do a YouTube short of nature. If I catch myself thinking, well, this is going to be big, people are going to love this, I know I'm not doing it for the sake of nature. I'm doing it because my ego is saying, this is going to be big. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we need to eliminate the ego. It's part of an appearance, an aspect of who we are. It's not who we are, but it's an aspect appearing within who we are. So there's no sense to try to subdue it or to fight it. We just don't need to believe it. And we don't need to know, we don't need to agree that it's our essential self. Odom says it's getting up to the high 60s, some 70s, still below freezing at night. We've been above freezing for a while, but I think it's going to dip back down early next week. Continuing on, what's different now is mostly age. I'm older. Being older and less inclined to chase ego away, or to make it feel at home. Mainly, it's just a small voice within a larger sense of presence, a voice that urges me to consider a point of view that no longer feels like my own. I'm more apt to smile at my own follies these days, no longer driven by need nor accomplishments, and that includes any wish to eliminate the ego's point of view. It's easier just to smile, relax, and live my life through joy. My yoga practice reflects this, or perhaps now I finally reflect my true practice. It doesn't matter either way. Right now, my yoga practice is healing-based, gentle, designed to calm some long-held pain, both physical and emotional. The voice of ego is often strong, urging me to drive harder and hold every pose longer. An athlete's voice, body-based, with everything judged by the previous standard once performed. But my easier approach is calming, quieting this voice to a whisper that soon drops to silence. No fight necessary, no need to push away its presence. I'm just less concerned with ego's point of view, and gently, continue with my practice, smiling all the while. That was a huge shift for me, most especially since I re-injured my back a little while back. A back injury that, hey, our friend Brian is here, Brian Lane. Brian, it's been a great day, thank you. I hurt my back in 1990, training for powerlifting. It's mostly been okay. I never sought any kind of treatment, and I mainly healed. But every so often there'd be a tweak, and I might be slightly out of commission. Still train, but find a more easier approach. And I found that that injury has been intimately linked with my ego. When my ego tells my body one more rep, when my ego tells my body hold that pose longer, run another mile, do a harder race, none of that is bad. Sometimes you want to get another rep. Sometimes it's good to get another rep. Sometimes it's good to hold a posture longer. The question is, why are you doing it? Am I doing it to please the ego, which is never going to be pleased because it's going to come back tomorrow and say, now hold it even longer. Now do 2 more reps. Now run another mile. Or am I doing it because I'm finding joy in that pose? I'm finding joy in my burpees and I want to do another rep. Not to please my ego, but because it feels so good doing what I'm doing, because it makes me smile to do it. If I find myself smiling at any time in any of my practice, then I'm working from spirit. If I find myself demanding anything of myself, if I find myself demanding another rep, if I find that I'm disappointed, I only got this many burpees when I should be getting this many, it's the voice of the ego. The only thing we need to know is the difference between the two. We don't need to know how to eliminate the ego. We don't need to how to always stay with spirit. We just need to be able to distinguish that there's a difference. And which one brings us joy, and which one leads us to regret, or a sense of shame, or a sense of we didn't accomplish anything. Which one drives us? Which one fills us with joy? Brian is saying hi to everyone. Says he's outside listening to the woodpecker working on a tree and listening to you talk here. I heard a woodpecker today. I saw one from a distance. They're hard to get a photo or a film of because they're always moving around. I did take one maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I got it up on my channel somewhere. Absolutely love woodpeckers. Amazing birds. Brian says, sometimes it's like playing a game of chess with an ego. That's the perfect description, Brian. Beautifully said. And I definitely agree. It is, and no matter what, we always lose. And sometimes it's a good thing. You lose, and then you start learning and you start to remember to smile. It was just a game, after all. I forget the name of the author. I think I have the book here somewhere. The title was Finite Games and Infinite Games. That we all go through life playing games. Careers, paycheck, cars, homes, houses, vacations. Those are finite games. We play them to win. And then there's the infinite games. Infinite games are the things of the spirit. An infinite game is what Odom does when he's in his garden, when he's planting. That's an infinite game because he's working with life. And it fills him with a sense of joy, and he's doing something larger than his own self. He doesn't plant, I always use tomatoes as an example. I don't even know if Odom actually grows tomatoes. I'm going to suspect that he does. But he doesn't plant a tomato with the intent of, this is going to be the biggest, baddest tomato on the planet. No one's going to believe how big this tomato is. I'm going to put this tomato on my tomato trophy case. It's the biggest tomato in the world. The thought probably doesn't even occur in his mind. If it did, he would smile. That's an infinite or a finite game. Infinite game is the planting itself, the nurturing, the joy that it fills him with. An infinite game is doing burpees outside, working out outside, listening to a woodpecker, um, while engaging with friends. That's an infinite game. The woodpecker, being outside, conversation with friends. Important things. So, guys, that's about it. That was tonight's reading. I enjoyed that one. It took me a long time, again, to distinguish between those two voices. As I mentioned, the ego has a way of sneaking in the back door, and we don't know it, and we sort of convince ourselves that, now that I've been meditating for 40 years, I'm better than the ego. I've mastered the ego, which of course is the ego speaking. So it's just a matter of being mindful and always returning to the things that bring us joy. Joy is the emotion of spirit itself. So with that, guys, I'm going to say goodnight. See Peyton, Odom, and Brian. Thank you, guys. Hey, and it is what it is. Lewis is here. I'm glad you popped in and I got a chance to say hi, although we're shutting things down. I did watch your badass one-arm Navy SEALs. Brian, if you didn't see Lewis doing his Navy SEALs, definitely check it out. Those are pretty amazing. And that's okay. Lewis, not a big deal at all. I appreciate you stopping in. Sorry, my cat is calling for my attention, and by that I mean she's sticking her claws in my leg. So, all right, guys, let me go say hi to my cat, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for some burpees. Take care.